Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. In Pakistan, an army officer has been martyred in an exchange of fire with terrorists in northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The military's media wing said Captain Abdullah Zafar was leading a patrolling convoy when the terrorists opened fire on them in the South Waziristan district. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict. Addressing the media after a meeting with the chairman of the Afghan Council for Reconciliation, Abdullah in Islamabad, Qureshi said peace in Afghanistan will lead to regional prosperity. He said the Afghan peace chief negotiator acknowledges the positive role of Pakistan in the peace process. Earlier, Qureshi warned that all the stakeholders must be aware of peace spoilers. The UN says Israeli forces have demolished over 500 buildings in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip this year, displacing dozens of Palestinians. In a statement, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said 22 buildings were razed over the past 2 weeks alone. Azerbaijan says it has captured 2 districts previously held by Armenia during the ongoing fierce fighting over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Azerbaijan's envoy to Pakistan, Ali Alizadeh, said several strategic heights at Murab mountain have also been liberated from Armenia's illegal occupation. At least 23 people have reportedly been killed and several others wounded in the heaviest clashes between the 2 countries since 2016. The new coronavirus has claimed more than 998,000 lives, infecting over 33 million across the globe. India's coronavirus cases Delhi has topped 6 million after it reported over 82,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The Indian Health Ministry said 1,039 COVID-19 patients died overnight, taking the count to over 95,000. In Pakistan, 9 more people lost their lives to the virus yesterday, bringing the death toll to 6,466. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. In Pakistan, an army officer has been martyred in an exchange of fire with terrorists in northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The military's media wing said Captain Abdullah Zafar was leading a patrolling convoy when terrorists opened fire on them in the South Waziristan district. It said the security forces have cordoned off the area for a clearance operation. Earlier this month, 2 soldiers were martyred in an exchange of fire with terrorists in North Waziristan. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict. Addressing the media after the meeting with the chairman of the Afghan Council for Reconciliation, Abdullah in Islamabad, Qureshi said peace in Afghanistan will lead to regional prosperity. Foreign Minister said the Afghan peace chief negotiator acknowledges the positive role of Pakistan in the Afghan peace process. He said Prime Minister Imran Khan's special advisor on trade, Abdur Razzaq Dawood, will visit Afghanistan to discuss bilateral ties. He told the visiting dignitary that Pakistan will continue playing a constructive role in the Afghan peace process. The visit of the Afghan delegation comes as the Afghan government and the Taliban are engaged in peace talks. The Taliban say Kabul's refusal to acknowledge the Doha Pact as the base document of the intra-Afghan talks is illegal and a breach of its commitments. In a statement, the Taliban said they will reserve the right to redefine their conditions for talks if Kabul seeks to withdraw from the Doha Accords. They said the Kabul administration has been following every step as described in the Doha Pact, and this sudden refusal of its recognition is a clear breach. The Taliban said the Afghan government's acts will annul the efforts that led to international consensus and support for lasting peace in Afghanistan. Earlier, another meeting of the contact groups of the Taliban and Kabul ended inconclusively in Doha. Kabul's negotiator, Nader Nadri, and Taliban spokesperson Dr. Naeem says such meetings will continue until a final agreement is reached. Azerbaijan says it has captured the Fuzuli and Jibrail districts previously held by Armenia during the ongoing fierce fighting between the two countries. Azerbaijan's ambassador to Pakistan, Ali Alizada, said several strategic heights at Murav Mountain have also been liberated from Armenia's illegal occupation. Azerbaijan declared a state of war in some of its cities yesterday following heavy clashes with Armenian forces in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Both the sides have reported a total of 23 military and civilian casualties in the worst escalation since 2016. Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev says the blood of the martyrs will be avenged.
As a result of the enemy shelling, there are casualties among the civilian population and military personnel. May Allah rest the souls of our martyrs. Their blood will not remain on the ground. The Azerbaijani army is currently shelling, striking the enemy's military positions, and as a result of these attacks, most of the enemy's military equipment was destroyed. This is another manifestation of Armenian fascism.
Earlier, Armenia declared martial law after claiming to have destroyed several Azerbaijani helicopters and tanks. Moreover, international community has called for an end to the ongoing fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The clashes between the two former Soviet republics are the latest flare-up of a long-running conflict over a breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
UN Secretary General has called on both sides to stop fighting and return to the negotiating table. US President Donald Trump says Washington will seek to end the violence between the two neighbors. Kremlin said Russia's President Vladimir Putin has expressed serious concern over the escalation of the situation. Pakistan and Turkey said they fully support Azerbaijan's right to self-defense and its position on Nagorno-Karabakh region. Meanwhile, Iran and the European Union have too called on the two sides to de-escalate and settle their differences through dialogue.
The United Nations says Israel has demolished more than 500 structures in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip this year. In a statement, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said Israeli forces razed buildings on the pretext of lacking a building permit. According to the statement, a total of 134 structures were demolished in East Jerusalem alone. It said Israeli forces brought down 22 buildings over the past 2 weeks. This led to the displacement of 50 Palestinians and caused harms to around 200 others. Israel has intensified its atrocities in Palestine as the US is pushing more Arab countries to establish diplomatic ties with Tel Aviv after the UAE and Bahrain. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has warned against attempts to stoke instability in the country. Sisi's warning follows a recent spate of scattered and small-scale anti-government protests. At a ceremony in Cairo, Sisi said some people are trying to take advantage of the tough measures his government has taken. He said they chose the hard conditions to cast doubts among Egyptians over the government's reforms. Dozens of people took part in the rare protests in recent days in several villages in Egypt. On Saturday, a man was killed in clashes between the protesters and police in a village south of Cairo. Jordan's King Abdullah has dissolved the country's parliament, paving the way for an election in November. Under constitutional rules, the government must resign within a week. The king issued a royal decree ordering the dissolution of the parliament effective on Sunday. The assembly comprises 130 lawmakers, mainly pro-government tribal officials, businessmen, and ex-security officials. In July, Jordan's Electoral Commission set 10th of November as the date for parliamentary elections. This comes after the monarch called for countrywide polls to be held at the end of the parliament's 4-year term. France's President Emmanuel Macron says he will not give up on an initiative to save Lebanon from collapse. At a press conference, Macron said he was ashamed of Lebanon's leaders and will ramp up pressure on them to change course. The president said he is giving the rulers another 6 weeks to implement a French roadmap to bring the country back from chaos. As for now, he said there is no chance of imposing sanctions on Lebanon's leaders. Macron said he did not think that imposing sanctions will be useful at this stage. On Saturday, Lebanon's Prime Minister designate Mustafa Adib resigned after failing to make a non-partisan cabinet. Moving on to Belarus, where thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in Minsk for a 7th straight weekend, calling for President Alexander Lukashenko to quit. Security forces detained over 50 protesters and fired stun grenades and tear gas to disperse the crowds. A large number of women participated in the protest, with one group chanting in favor of opposition politician Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Unrest in Belarus was triggered by last month's disputed presidential election, which believed to have been rigged in favor of Lukashenko, but the president denies any wrongdoing. Earlier, Belarus accused Western nations of attempting to sow chaos and anarchy in the country. Spain's Supreme Court has barred Catalonia's regional president Quim Torra from his office for refusing to remove a banner. The banner called for the release of imprisoned separatist leaders and was displayed on a public building ahead of the 2019 general election. The latest ruling that Torra disobeyed Spain's electoral law has triggered a new period of uncertainty in the northeast Spanish region. As per the existing regulations, Torra's deputy must take over as president in charge until a new election is held. A staunch separatist, Torra became the head of Catalonia's government following the 2017 push for the region's independence from Spain. He had previously criticized the case as an act of repression against the democratic mandate of the voters in the region. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Washington and Athens are vital partners and share a common strategic vision. Pompeo said this following his meeting with Greek Foreign Minister Nikos Dendias in Athens. In a statement, the State Department said Pompeo's visit aims to renew commitment to advance security and peace in the disputed waters. As part of a four-nation tour of Europe, Pompeo arrived in Thessaloniki for his second visit in less than a year. Following his travels in Greece, Pompeo will visit Italy, Vatican, and Croatia. Mali's former Foreign Minister Mokhtar Ouane has been named as the country's interim Prime Minister. The move is likely to trigger the lifting of sanctions from the West African bloc ECOWAS in the aftermath of the military coup last month. Besides being the foreign minister, Ouane has also served as Mali's ambassador to the UN from 1995 to 2002. His appointment comes 2 days after retired Colonel Bernador was sworn in as the country's president and coup leader Colonel Assimi Goïta as vice president. The men will be tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition back to the civilian rule. 11 people have been shot dead in a bar in the central Mexican state of Guanajuato. The Attorney General's office said bodies of 7 men and 4 women were found in the Herral del Progreso city's bar. Authorities say another woman was found with gunshot injuries. Police said Guanajuato is ravaged by a turf war between the local Santa Rosa de Lima gang and the powerful Jalisco New Generation cartel. In July, gunmen killed 24 people at a drug rehabilitation center in Guanajuato, marking one of the worst mass slings. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has pledged to reduce record levels of violence. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The new coronavirus has claimed more than 998,000 lives, infecting over 33 million across the globe. India's cases tally has topped 6 million after it reported over 82,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The Indian Health Ministry said 1,039 COVID-19 patients died overnight, taking the count to over 95,000. More in this report.
The graph of global COVID-19 cases is once again taking off, with a second wave gripping majority of the world. In the US, 21 states are reopening despite increased COVID-19 cases. Down in Latin America, the largest city in Brazil's Amazon region has closed bars and beaches to contain a fresh surge of cases. Criticism of President Jair Bolsonaro's repeated downplaying of the pandemic threat is now getting louder.
The government must take this seriously and speak the truth, to say what is happening and what is not, for two reasons. If it says there is no problem, then we'll receive no help. Secondly, if they say there is no problem, that encourages people to ignore our decrees.
More restrictions are expected in Europe as coronavirus spreads rapidly through the region, rattling markets. While the UK mulls a possibility of another nationwide lockdown, France, Germany and Italy are becoming increasingly wary of possible imported cases. The situation in East is also getting worrisome, with the fatal virus now increasingly threatening lives of children in Iran.
The coronavirus infection rates also show that the number of child infections is increasing, although, like I said, the symptoms in children are different and sometimes diagnosis becomes really difficult.
Mainland China has reported 21 new COVID-19 cases, saying all of them were imported. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said travel between New Zealand and some states of Australia is possible before the end of the year. This comes as the virus has been largely contained in Down Under.
In Pakistan, 9 people have died from COVID-19 overnight, taking the toll to 6,466. The Health Ministry said 566 people tested positive over the past 24 hours, raising the number of active cases to over 8,000. The ministry said with a 95% recovery rate, over 296,000 patients have recovered from the disease. Sindh is the most affected province with more than 136,000 infections, while over 99,000 cases have been reported in Punjab so far. The National Command and Operations Centre says 735 hospitals are providing facilities to nearly 700 patients admitted across the country. US President Donald Trump has rejected a New York Times report claiming that the billionaire paid only $750 in federal income tax 2016 and 2017.
After stirring up a controversy in the 2016 presidential poll, Donald Trump's tax returns have once again returned to haunt his bid for re-election in November. Addressing a press conference, Trump called the report as fake news, saying he paid his taxes. The US president also pledged to make his tax returns public.
You have people that in the IRS, they treat me very, very badly, but they're under audit. And when they're not, I would be proud to show it, but that's just fake news. The New York Times tried it, the same thing. They want to create a little bit of a story, they're doing anything they can. Not only that's the least of it. I mean, the stories that I read are so fake, they're so phony.
The New York Times claims it obtained data of Trump and his business empire covering over 2 decades. The report accuses Trump of paying 0 income taxes in 10 of the last 15 years, despite claiming income close to $435 million in 2018's financial disclosure. It said Trump was able to minimize his tax bill by reporting heavy losses across his business empire. In a statement, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said the latest revelations about Trump's taxes showed his disdain for America's working families. The report comes ahead of the first of 3 presidential debates on Tuesday and weeks before the November 3rd presidential election.
A US judge has blocked President Donald Trump's order to ban downloads of Chinese short video app TikTok. Nominated by President Trump last year, District Judge Carl Nichols issued a temporary injunction following TikTok's request. The judge, however, abstained from blocking other Commerce Department restrictions that are set to make TikTok unusable in the US. During hearing, TikTok's lawyer said in the wake of the ongoing negotiations, the ban was unprecedented and irrational. TikTok argued that the restrictions were politically motivated amid the US and China tensions. Meanwhile, another judge in California has blocked a similar order from taking effect on WeChat, a Chinese messaging app. A wind-driven wildfire has erupted in Northern California's Napa Valley, rapidly spreading across over 1,000 acres. Authorities said the fire has caused evacuation of hundreds of homes and hospitals in the surroundings. The fire broke out before dawn near Calistoga, spreading towards the adjacent towns of Deer Park and St. Helena. The California Fire Department said the firefighters are struggling to put out the blazing flames. The power to transmission lines in 16 counties across northern and central California has also been suspended. The authorities say they are investigating the cause of the fire. There are no immediate reports of the casualties. Saudi Arabia says the G20 Leaders Summit will be held virtually on November the 21st and 2nd. In a statement, G20 presidency said the summit will be chaired by Saudi Arabia's King Salman. The statement said the G20 is leading the fight against the global pandemic, taking swift and unprecedented actions to protect lives. It said the meeting will lay foundations for a better future to save lives. The G20 has contributed over $21 billion to support the production, distribution and access to diagnostics, therapeutics and vaccines. It has also injected $11 trillion to safeguard the global economy and launched a debt suspension initiative for least developed countries. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. The UK's Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove is heading to Brussels to talk about Britain's future relationship with the European Union. Gove will meet European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič to discuss implementation of the Brexit deal. The UK government said it will carry out treaty obligations in good faith. Formal negotiations will resume on September the 29th as the two sides attempt to agree a post-Brexit trade deal. The last round of talks ended after London introduced the Home Market Bill that allows the UK to bypass parts of the original Brexit deal. The EU's spokesperson has warned if the bill passes, it will constitute an extremely serious violation of the withdrawal agreement and international law. The Brexit transition period, in which the UK has kept to EU trading rules, ends on December the 31st. Qatar Airways says it has received a $1.95 billion stimulus package from the government after facing grinding halt to flights due to the pandemic. In a statement, the airline said it got the package after annual losses exceeded 50% of the share capital. It said 2020 had been one of its most difficult years ever, with the losses widening from previous year's $1.2 billion. The airline has already cut jobs and delayed new aircraft deliveries. The company has been facing a ban from the airspace of the neighboring countries due to regional political dispute. US stocks are trading higher, with technology, banks and travel shares leading the advance. The Wall Street stocks bounced back from the longest weekly losing streak in a year for the S&P 500 and the Dow. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is trading higher by about 1.5%, while the S&P 500 is trading higher by over 1%. The Nasdaq Composite Index is also trading higher by about 1%. Meanwhile, oil prices were largely steady but on track for their first monthly fall since April, as rising coronavirus cases continue to hamper demand. In the English Premier League, Leicester City have thrashed Manchester City 5-2 in a stunning contest at Etihad Stadium. Jamie Vardy scored a hat-trick as the Foxes go top of the league. In contrast, Pep Guardiola's suffered his worst home defeat as City boss, with his team now in the bottom half of the table. In another fixture, Patrick Bamford's late header earned Leeds United a hard-fought victory against Sheffield United. Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur continue to frustrate fans as they were held at home by Newcastle United. In the National Basketball Association, Miami Heat have beaten Boston Celtics 125-113 to book a date with the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. The Heat won the Western Conference Finals for the sixth time. Miami Heat were down by 6 early in the fourth quarter before regaining control with a 6-0 burst. Bam Adebayo scored a season-high 32 points and grabbed 14 rebounds. Jimmy Butler scored 22 points. Tyler Herro scored 19. Duncan Robinson and Andre Iguodala each had 15, and Goran Dragic added 13 for the Heat. For Boston, Jaylen Brown scored 26 points. Jason Tatum had 24 and a career-high 11 assists. Miami Heat are seeking their fourth NBA title. Game 1 of the final series is on Wednesday night. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.